We can start.
Okay, we'll get the June 9th council meeting underway here. I called it to order. 1.1, the agenda. Additions to the agenda. We have an omission for the agenda. Omission, we'd like to delete 7.2 for this until Councillor Woodstock gets back. Any other additions, or Councillor Hoppins, or?
Carolyn.
Oh, Carolyn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Could we, administration would like to add 2 closed session items and also an addition for Councillor Attendance.
Okay.
We could put that under 7.3. The closed session items are disclosure harmful to personal privacy, ATIA section 20, times 2.
Okay, and you're adding 7.2?
7.3.
7.3 is what?
Councillor Attendance.
Okay. Any other additions? Councillor Hoppins?
I move to adopt the agenda as amended for Tuesday, June 9th, 2026.
Any concerns? All in favor? Carried. Approval of the minutes, 2.1. We're approving the May 26th council minutes. Any errors or omissions? Any concerns on them? Councillor Olson?
Then I'll approve that regular council minutes be adopted.
Concerns? Everyone's okay? All in favor? Approved. Okay, which one do you want? Let's go to 4.1.
Sure.
Morning.
Good morning, Council. Just here to do the monthly verbal update from infrastructure. So obviously just jumping into the hot topic. Recent rainfalls have created challenges across the county on many gravel roads. So we definitely are prioritizing. So we've had, we're focusing on the highest priorities first, including washout, hills, high traffic routes, locations where road conditions may impact public safety. So all the graders are back out. They were shut down to Monday to Wednesday last week. They are back out, hitting those problematic areas and then trying to get back into their beat. Our dust control program, we are currently in the south still. Obviously was shut down last week due to the weather. So we're about 80% done the south, with just some left in Division 3 and Division 5 greater divisions. And then we'll be heading into the north and getting those done. So that resumed yesterday on Monday with that. So during those rain days, staff were completing online training, yard cleanups, shop maintenance activities, fixing equipment. We hauled some stuff to auctions that needed to go. Just getting general maintenance, that smaller projects that we can pluck off during rain days done. For service requests, from May 13th to the 26th, we had 21 transportation service requests. All 21 were completed within that time frame. May 27th to June 8th, so this includes the rain week there. We had 18 total service requests called in, 14 for grading, with 10 of them completed as of yesterday. Private laneway blading, 1 remains open. General inquiry, and then 2 drainage requests. Moving into capital projects, so our Linden Overlay project is moving forward. They are expecting to start prep work next week, I believe June 15th, with paving operations to hopefully begin June 20th. Our gravel program, or purchase program, is our Redland stockpile has a total of 5,915 cubic meters at that site. The contractor, we are just waiting on the contractor to start crushing and hauling to Granger now. Our roads in need program, the prelim engineer work has commenced on that. Our Bergen gravel pit, pit transfers, our permits are in place. We're working on with Mountain View County, starting to work with Mountain View County on the development permits for that expandable area. And then we are also preparing our 2026 gravel crushing tender to be crushed at that pit at a 420 spec. So, yeah. Is there any questions?
Yeah, with this weather that we've had, it sure shows the lack of maintenance that's been going on throughout the county on the grader side. That being said, I did see the grader up in my area doing a heck of a job. When he did do it, he's right on. I've drove a lot of other areas. I got a lot of calls over from different areas. And a lot of people don't want us to, or didn't want to phone into the center. They'd rather talk to us, which is fine. That's what we're here for, and we're going to encourage that. So, a couple questions. There's a few things that I think we need to be looking at with our grader guys, and we're going to discuss this after, anyways, or a little later on. Our roads aren't crowned enough. We're digging the side slopes down, the shoulders down. We're creating eave troughs along a lot of roads, and that's just maintenance. That they've got to learn how to do that. One other question I have that I'd like to have an answer for, or maybe you can tell me, is when did we start spraying Roundup on the shoulders?
Through the chair, the spraying program, I am not sure. That would be a ag department thing. In regards to the maintenance on the roads, our guys are definitely trying. We try to maintain that 3% crown. That seems to be the magic number, that we don't get complaints about too much of a crown, but not enough crown. We definitely try to limit those ridges that hold the water. I think a lot of the road conditions that I was out on the roads and witnessed myself were due to the fluffiness of lack of moisture and then 5 inches of rain dumped in a couple days. So definitely some areas that were, as you said, need that improvement on those shoulders, but there was lots that was just general maintenance. So we'll definitely continue to improve upon that. And the grader guys are doing good work out there, and we'll continue to give them the support and training that they need to improve and get better and better.
So getting back to the Roundup, who is spraying it? Oh, okay. For what reason?
It's ag department, so I'm just checking.
Okay, but I mean, we don't spray on the round or shoulders because all you've done now is created a problem. Like these guys, the grader guys, they're sprayed over top of the shoulder, so the shoulder's breaking away. So these grader guys are still digging down. So all they're doing is widening these roads. Well, we'll look at that on the road committee. Any other questions? Councillor Cunningham?
Yeah, and kind of like what the Reeves said, I mean, it's great if people want to phone into the county. I mean, I know because 443-5541, 24 hours a day, if I'm correct. And then you folks create the service request, right? Like Reeves said, some people just want to call their counselor, and that's fine. That's their prerogative, and like you said, that's what we're here for. So if we get a concern, and I know my protocol is I email the CEO, is a service request then created from that concern that I've brought forward? Yeah.
Through the chair, that is correct. Yeah, anything that is communicated through that is a service request.
And those are interesting numbers. I appreciate you providing those because, yeah, what did it say? 21 service requests before the rain event and then 18 kind of post-rain event. So, yeah, that's interesting. Good numbers to know.
CEO Cochran?
Thank you. Just got a response from Ms. Sherlock, our agricultural manager. So we don't spray Roundup on edges. The products that we use is called Arsenal and Detail, and they spray where the graders have identified grass encroachment. If you'd like her to come in and give more information on the spraying program, we can book that for the next meeting.
We'll discuss that on road committee. Thanks. Any other questions? Pit-wise, permits, no problems?
Through the chair, the current permits are just in the transferring process, so there's no problems there. The active pit is an active pit, so that's going smoothly. We're just starting the development permit side of things, so that should go no problem as well. And once we get to that, we'll give more of an update. So we got a little bit of a cleanup to do just to make our crushing a little easier out there. But other than that, it should be a pretty straightforward contract, so.
Councillor Olson?
Yeah, I think with the recent rain, it was good to see or bring up or show some of those areas that were lacking. It helped. We haven't had a rain like that for a little while, so I think maybe we found some things that had been there, but just, so yeah, we'll be able to look at those. Great, thanks.
Just for information, June 17th, road committee? Bring the big car with some gas. Any other questions? Councillor Hopkins?
Just more of a comment than a question. Over the last few weeks, I've been out in the public and a lot of people have said, congratulations on buying the gravel pit. I'm sure it was a hard decision, which it was for me, but in the long run, it's gonna make a lot of sense, so. And then the next question they asked is, have we as a council been out there to have a tour of it and check it out? And I said, no, we haven't. And they said, when are you going? And I said, I don't know. So that's something that we should probably look at doing, is going out and seeing what we've just spent a lot of taxpayer money on, so. Perfect, thank you. All I got.
Good. All right. Yeah, if we can get to know that date prior to, so we can plan. Okay. Thanks, Mike.
You?
What else do you want to go to? Let's go to 5.1. Morning.
Good morning. An application has been received to redesignate a portion of the southwest of 1828-24 from agriculture to agriculture business. The purpose of the redesignation is to allow for a commercial indoor riding arena and horse boarding facility. Rezoning to ag business would allow the applicants to apply for a commercial use indoor riding arena, which is a discretionary use under that district. Under the Municipal Government Act, applications for the redesignation of land require a public hearing to be held prior to second reading of the bylaw. Requesting first reading to a proposed bylaw is the mechanism to get the application onto the agenda schedule. An additional motion is required to set the public hearing. All information and questions regarding the applications are to be brought forward at the public hearing so it may be heard by everyone. Public hearing process is legislated. As per the MGA, council must hear any person or group of people who claim to be affected by the proposed bylaw. Any landowner who feels they will be impacted by the proposal, either positively or negatively, will have an opportunity to attend and speak to the matter directly at the public hearing. Affected parties can also submit their comments in writing. These comments will be included in the public hearing package for council consideration. Participating in the public hearing is a legislative method for landowners to provide comments to council for consideration. Once a public hearing is closed, no additional information should be considered in the decision-making process. Redesignations are about the proposed use. It is not a permit to develop. If successful in the redesignation, specific details regarding the development will be required to be submitted with their application. The location of the proposed redesignation is just north of Highway 9, adjacent the boundary with Rocky View County. Wheatland County boundary is south of Highway 9. The landowner wishes to redesignate their entire parcel within southwest of 1829-24, west of the 4th, Plan 7710982, Block 1. By rezoning the entire parcel, it allows the landowners not to be constrained to the confines of a zoning boundary. So your options today are move first reading, move to schedule the public hearing, or move to schedule the public hearing for an alternate date and time.
Questions? Councillor Penner?
I guess if there's no questions, then I would move that I would make the motion that council move to schedule a public hearing for bylaw 1934 as per sections 216.4, 606, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act to be held on July the 21st, 2026 at 10 a.m.
Should we have a motion for the first reading?
Oh, the first reading has, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, I will withdraw that then, and I will read.
Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
I would move that council, I would make the motion that council move for first reading of bylaw 1934 for the purpose of amending the land use bylaw 1808 by redesignating the portion southwest of 1828-24 west of the 4th, Plan 7710982, Block 1, from agricultural district to agricultural business district.
Questions, concerns? All in favor? Carried. Councillor Cunningham.
I will move that council schedule the public hearing bylaw 1934 as per sections 216.4, 606, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act to be held on July 21st, 2026 at 10 a.m.
Questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Let's go, we'll do 7.1.
Okay, sorry. Do you have the plan up? You jumped around on me there.
Yes, we did.
Good thing I just finished. Ready? Good morning, council. Is it okay if I present from here? Absolutely. Thank you. So today, administration is bringing forward the 2026 to 2029 strategic plan for council's consideration and adoption. Over the past several months, council has invested a significant amount of time discussing the priorities, challenges, opportunities, and the future direction of Kneehill County. This document is a result of those conversations and reflects the direction council has provided throughout the process. The purpose of today's presentation is simply to review the final plan and seek council's approval so it can guide our work over the next 4 years. 3.5 now, really. Development of the plan. So one thing I'm particularly proud of, and we all should be as a council, is that, as your council, is that we developed this plan in-house. This plan wasn't guided by a consultant, it was completed by you with your words, your ideas, and the reason that you're here today. By completing the work internally, we were able to tailor the plan specifically, so it is Kneehill County's plan and it represents the needs of our residents, while also avoiding the cost typically associated with an external consultant. We estimate that this approach resulted in a savings of approximately $15,000 to $20,000 of residents' taxpayers' dollars. More importantly, it allowed us to build the plan that reflects the realities of our organization, our residents, and the priorities that Council identified. The discussions consistently focused on 4 key considerations: the services the residents expect from us, the infrastructure we are responsible for maintaining, the financial realities facing municipalities, and the long-term sustainability of our decisions. As administration worked through Council's feedback, one thing became very clear. The strategic plan is not about expanding services. It's about strengthening and sustaining the services we already provide. It's about ensuring the roads remain drivable, infrastructure remains reliable, services remain responsive, and taxpayers' dollars are managed responsibly. It's about ensuring that the roads, at its core, this plan reflects practical decision-making, fiscal responsibility, and a commitment to long-term sustainability. The plan reinforces Council direction in several key areas. It focused on strengthening our core municipal services, maintaining and improving our infrastructure, supporting our agriculture and rural economy, managing taxpayer dollars responsibly, and building practical and sustainable partnerships. These priorities provide administration with clear direction and establish the foundation for future decision-making. The plan has 4 pillars, and the plan is organized around those, and the first one is infrastructure as Council's main priority, financial stewardship, agriculture and rural economy, and community stability. These pillars create a framework that will guide budgeting, operational planning, policy development, and reporting throughout this next term of Council. They also help ensure that decisions remain aligned with Council's priorities and strategic direction. Several important themes appeared consistent throughout the plan. Firstly, infrastructure, as indicated, remains the highest priority. Roads, bridges, facilities, equipment, and core assets are fundamental to the services we provide and the expectation of our residents. Second, financial stewardship remains critical. Municipalities continue to face increasing pressures, including inflation, aging infrastructure, and ongoing provincial downloading. The plan recognizes the need to remain disciplined and intentional with taxpayer dollars. Third, agriculture continues to be the foundation of our community and our economy, and supporting agriculture and creating conditions for rural activity, economic activity remain important priorities. Finally, the plan recognizes that the services and partnerships must remain sustainable. We need to continue making decisions that support today's needs without creating challenges for future councils and future taxpayers. What the plan will do once adopted will be our primary guiding document for administration's work. It will inform annual operating and capital budgets. It'll guide departmental business planning, support consistent and transparent decision-making, establish clear priorities for administration, and provide residents with a clear understanding of Council's direction. What the plan does not do is the plan does not commit the county to new programs, to new services, or spending beyond what's financially sustainable. Instead, it focuses on defining the priorities, maintaining service levels, ensuring that resources are directed toward things that matter most to residents. So initially, there are no immediate financial or staffing implications with the strategic plan. However, the document will become the key tool for decision-making and will help administration maintain alignment between Council's priorities, budget decisions, and operational activities. If adopted today, administration will begin implementation immediately. The plan will be published and shared with residents. It'll be incorporated into departmental planning, budget development, and organizational reporting processes that will be coming up. And Council will have the opportunity to review the plan annually, ensuring it remains relevant. In closing, the strategic plan reflects Council's commitment to responsible governance, strong infrastructure and sound financial management, support for agriculture, and sustainable future for Kneehill County. It's practical, achievable, and grounded in the realities facing rural municipalities today. Most importantly, it provides a clear roadmap that will help guide the decisions throughout this term of Council. For those reasons, administration recommends that Council adopt the 2026 to 2029 Kneehill County Strategic Plan as presented.
Thanks for that, Teresa. Questions, concerns? Councillor Cunningham?
So just to clarify, is today the first day that the public has seen the strategic plan as presented? Okay. can somebody remind me, last term when we did our strategic plan, was there public consultation on that before we adopted it?
I don't believe there was any
Okay.
public consultation.
Okay, so for me personally, I know it's a council-driven document, and as the CEO said, I'm really proud of the work we did. We didn't hire a consultant. It wasn't driven by a consultant. It was driven by the 7 people that sit around this table. I'm always concerned to adopt something before the public's had an opportunity to view it and to comment. And so, for me personally, I would either make a motion to delay that, present it to the public, and I mean, there's a possibility we have 0 comments, but I still think the public deserves the opportunity to have that ability to comment on it before we adopt it. Just my thoughts on that.
Yep, good comments. I understand, like, this was a tough one for me because as far as I'm concerned, like, the strategic plan is something that I wasn't really in favor of. The way it's worded now, where we can actually, as a council, we can get our direction as urban, or as urban people decide to take over surrounding areas. To me, this is getting back to rural. And rural is where it's at. I am in favor of Councillor Cunningham's thoughts, and I mean, it doesn't have to take long. We can receive this as information and get it out to the public for their views or whatever, or comments. I'm in favor of adopting it the way it is. Councillor Olson.
Yeah, I think this is more of a tool for administration to work off of based on what the council has come up with, but it lets them work accordingly. They can go back to this and base their decisions off this plan. But as long as I think we've been moving along anyway, so if there was some time needed for the residents to take a look at this, I got no problem with that either.
Any other thoughts? Councillor Hopkins.
My thoughts are, I agree. I like it the way it's laid out, very clear. I hadn't thought about the public consultation aspect of it, which I do agree with. The more verbal input that we have from our ratepayers, the better. So I could go either way with either adopting it today or accepting his information and presenting it to the public. If there was a motion out there.
Councillor Penner.
I don't disagree with the consultation at all. I guess my comment would be is that the strategic, if the council doesn't adopt this strategic plan to present it to the public, then what are we presenting to the public? If we don't adopt a strategic plan before we put it out in public, then it's just a document of, I don't understand the process then, whether we would come back and change much in this if we got consultation. Like, if we got a significant amount of consultation about the strategic plan as it is right now, if we adopted this, then I assume that as a council we would rethink it. But how much additional thought would we give to this consultation would be my question.
This is a working document. We can work into it, whatever. I mean, so it's not as if it's written in stone. Sure. We can work with the public on this after.
You're liberty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Councillor Anderson.
I agree that I think we've put this together. We've done it together. It's a policy and it is a working document. If we find that there's some problems with it, we're going to react to it. I think we have to. I think we've done the work.
Councillor Cunningham?
Yeah, and so I totally understand Councillor Penner's comments, and like, so, a little different document, but like, for example, our municipal development plan, we would kind of have a template for that. We would consult with the public before we even adopted that, right? I'm gonna be honest, I think we put this out to the public, and there's probably a really good chance we get no comments back. But we do have a public participation policy, I think it's 18-2. And so for me, that's always, I want the public to have that opportunity. And it's definitely a council-driven document, but everything we do is community-based, right, and focused on that. Like I said, I'm guessing there's a good chance we won't have any comments, but I always want the public to have that ability. And so to me, if we accept it for information, we put this out on social media, and the next council meeting, we have no comments, there's no changes, then we adopt it, but we've given the public that ability to comment.
Any other questions, concerns? Everybody's had their say? Go ahead, Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, and within, like, I'll definitely say, like, I love our strategic plan, I really do. I think we did some great work. We didn't all agree. There were some interesting conversations around the table, but I still just want that opportunity. So I would make the motion that council accept the strategic plan for information and present it to the public and have it brought back to the next council meeting, which is June.
Does that give you enough time?
I guess, yeah, that's a good question for administration. Would that give you, I mean, that would give.
Would need to be 2 meetings at least.
2 meetings at least? Okay.
So we could write the report and get it in.
July 21st, yeah.
Okay. Questions, concerns on the motion? Nothing? No questions, no concerns? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? We'll just take a 5-minute recess here before we get into the planning session. Thank you. 3.2. Okay, good morning. 10:05, we're back in session. Let's go on to 3.2. We'll reconvene the public hearing, bylaw 1927, bylaw 1928, and bylaw 1929 from May 28th. I'll have a motion to go into Councillor Cunningham.
I will move that the meeting goes into public hearing.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll go over some of the rules like we had before with the continuation. I'd like to remind the public, if they wish to speak to the bylaw, they should register their names. They did. I have that here. There'll also be an opportunity when I've gone through the speakers list and well, I'll ask for one final time if anyone else wishes to speak. Once again, I'll introduce the members of council, starting from my right.
Laura Lee Michelle Cunningham, Division 5.
Lonnie McCook, Division 7.
Good morning, Richard Hoppins, Division 6.
Lowell Olson, Division 4.
Darcy Penner, Division 2.
Okay, today's public hearing procedure will be followed according to procedural bylaw 1919. A copy of this procedure is attached to the package, and additional copies can be found at the recording secretary's desk. The public hearing package can also be downloaded from the Kneehill County website. The website address and QR code for quick access are displayed on the presentation package. I'll now ask our Planning and Development Department to come forward and make their presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Reid, members of council. I'm coming to you today to discuss the proposed draft area structure plan. So I will deal with the area structure plan portion, and then my colleague Deanna will be dealing with direct control districts. So the public here, we're not. Let me go here, 1 sec, sorry. There. Okay. The public hearing was scheduled originally for May 12th, and we did meet on that day. Procedure was followed whereby administration did present the applications to council. The applicants presented their proposals to council as well, and then council was provided with adjacent landowner letters of concern, as well as anything that we received from referral agencies. Adjacent landowners, including those who were currently reside within Saddle Up Estates, were given an opportunity to speak to council. At the conclusion of the public hearing, council made the motion to recess that public hearing until 10 a.m. today to seek a legal opinion and some further information. And so we are coming here to present that information to you today. Advertising was done on the website and then the Capitol noting the June 9th continuation of this hearing. And again, just a reminder, it is an amendment, a draft area structure plan that would, if successful, rescind the Saddle Up Estates area structure plan. And just a reminder, we're talking about an entire quarter of land, so it is the southwest quarter of 53326 west of 4. And again, the applicants have applied to try to address some of the historical issues that they've had, and they've also, as part of this process, will be creating a homeowners association that was never formally created initially. I wanted to give you a timeline of events so that, again, this is some of the history that you requested. So this bylaw, the area structure plan, was adopted in 2009. And then a month later, they redesignated the areas to country residential and to recreation. So again, that redesignation was done in 2009. And then a month after that, they approved the 16-lot subdivision. And so a lot of it happened in a very short period of time. In March of 2014, there was approved subdivision with a parcel with a riding arena. We have included the Municipal Planning Commission report from that time. So it does outline why they subdivided that portion, which we can talk about later if you have further questions or didn't see it for some reason. But we did highlight in yellow in that report, so it's there. And then in March of 2017, the residents met with us at the county because they were locked out of the arena and the trails. And so at that point in time, we went back to that area structure plan to see what legally we could do. We do not enforce restrictive covenants. That is a civil matter, but we do enforce the conditions that we put on subdivisions developments, and the area structure plan was one of those. So a stop order was issued at that point in time requiring the arena and the trail access, as well as we requested outstanding municipal reserves. In April of 2018, that stop order was appealed, and through that SDAB decision, they overturned the stop order, which meant basically that none of that had to happen. And so we did appeal the SDAB to the courts. The stop order was reinstated by the courts with the exception of the municipal reserves. They said we couldn't go after that at this point in time. And then later in 2021, the access easements were discharged through the courts. That had nothing to do with Kneehill County. And so, again, the other parcel that still had the easement on requested assistance in removing it from their parcel, so we did. In 2021, October, the arena parcel was sold, and at that point in time, it was again closed to residents. And so, again, we wound up going back to court. We did go through a lot of back and forth with the new owner, but we wound up having to get a court order issued. And so they did say that the arena trails had to be made available. And then the court decision regarding that was issued a couple years later in 2024. Then in January 2025, there was an easement proposed that was presented to the landowners, but only the majority landowner signed. And so we were back at not having anything. So again, a summary of the tools noted within the area structure plan are what become legally binding. The restrictive covenants, the HOA, et cetera. Included would be any conditions of subdivision and development that are approved as a result of land use changes. So again, it's removing that, the two paragraphs that you see in smaller font and italicized are the ones that have been removed. The mediation and dispute resolution process has been removed as it refers to the HOA, and that it has all been taken out and included in the HOA document, because there is a legislative process for appeals of an area structure plan. So again, we didn't want that confusing the situation. Under section 7, the effective date has, under the following sentence was removed: the terms and conditions set forth in this plan shall be legally enforceable. Again, landowners cannot enforce the requirements of a statutory plan. That is council decision. There are some additional and more grammatical changes that are also noted in the track changes. And again, as the appendices are quite lengthy, they've only been added to the clean copy, which was also attached to your package. And included in that was the court order, which was, again, something that legal suggested we include. There's other legal considerations that I would just wanted to highlight. Again, when an HOA is established, there are bylaws and articles of incorporation registered with the corporate registration. The bylaws set out how the HOA operates, including things like how the board of directors is elected and meeting procedures. It would then be registered against the title of lands whose owners form the membership of the HOA. This would authorize the HOA to enforce and charge the lands for payment of the annual fee. The HOA would have ownership of the common area. However, currently the legal entity to take the title does not exist, so it hasn't been incorporated yet. If council is agreeable to the direct control districts, it can become a condition of subdivision, because there would be a subdivision required, in which case we would not endorse the subdivision for registration until the legal entity was in place and we could caveat it to the titles. It can also be something required to be done prior to third reading of the area structure plan. If, however, council does not agree to the direct control districts, the common area as proposed by the applicant would not exist. So.
Does council have any questions for the planner?
I'll just continue with the direct control District 9, if that's okay. This area is currently zoned, currently recreation. The creation of this new district would limit uses allowed and provide greater control of the uses on these lands. It also removes uses which were previously allowed and or were incompatible in the and adjacent to the country residential district. So that area is the green area, kind of in the northwest corner of the north and the west corner of the direct control of the section. This section has been, the permitted uses and discretionary uses proposed are on your screen there. They're to accommodate and allow for control of the development or expansion of uses, to prohibit uses that are not appropriate for the subject site that may be in conflict with adjacent land uses and development as determined by council, and to accommodate uses that are appropriate for the specific site. And this is also to ensure the intent of the original area structure plan is still maintained at a higher level of equine, and the whole lifestyle is preserved. Due to the size of the parcel being at this point in time about 48.66 acres, we have said that 10 horses are allowed to accommodate the larger horse-loving family and or a small training facility. Livestock other than horses are considered discretionary due to the nature of the area structure plan and its mission. Discretionary uses would have council control and they are the approving authority. The Municipal Planning Commission only makes recommendations. And this would need subdivision approval as well. So then the direct control 10 is that highlighted in yellow. This again is currently still zone recreation district. The creation of this district would be to allow for the common area where the only use would be for the recreational equine. And so you can see here it is on the east side, and then it does incorporate a 30-foot trail on the back side of the country residential, and then there is a 15 feet that would go to the edge, which is under the court order. Again, your permitted and discretionary uses, the only permitted uses would be trail riding, and discretionary would be if the HOA came to an agreement and they maybe wanted some kind of an outdoor riding arena. Again, that would be discretionary, but at this point in time, these are the only uses that are being proposed for the direct control 10. So this is the trails, or the photo on the left is the original trails in Saddle Up Estates and what was proposed at that point in time, and then versus what is being proposed now by the applicants. So the one on the left here is the ones that were proposed back in January of 2025. So it did encompass around the whole quarter section and then as well the back sides of the country residential district. However, we only had the one landowner sign, and that was the owner of the majority of the lots. So again, these districts are currently zoned recreation. Again, here are your uses. The parcel in the southwest corner will remain zoned recreation. And here are your, again, your direct control 9 and direct control 10. At this point in time, administration is presenting an amendment at second reading that if, as for the DC 9, to when we say that there are going to be 10 horses max that would be allowed, we are restricting this to at time of development. We would like to prevent the lot being used strictly for pasture purposes. So you have multiple options as a council. You may adopt Prairie View Equestrian Estates Bylaw 1927 as presented, including the track changes. You may adopt Prairie View Equestrian Estates Bylaw 27 and amend with additional changes. You may amend Prairie View Equestrian Estates and retain the name Saddle Up Estates. Or you may deny Bylaw 1927, which is the Prairie View Estates Area Structure Plan Amendment, And then bylaw 1586, saddle up estates, would remain in place. You may also adopt Direct Control 9 as presented or amended, or you may amend the uses within that Direct Control 9, or you could deny that Direct Control 9 as well. You may also adopt Direct Control 10 and as presented or amended, amend the uses within Direct Control 10, amend the area of the Direct Control 10, or deny the Direct Control 10 as well. Administration is open to any amendments and council would like to make, but would need direction so they can be incorporated into the draft prior to further readings. Amendments would need to be discussed with the applicant as well. Oh, yeah. And then we do still have the site photos if anybody would like to review those as well.
Any questions for the planners? Councillor Olson?
Occupation minor versus major. Just a better explanation.
You betcha. So, minor would be something that would be just allowed in the home. We wouldn't necessarily, again, major would be a discretionary use, so it would be something that council would decide, but major would be something if they want an accessory building and run a welding shop from that accessory building. So major is something outside of the home, minor is within the home, such as a hairdresser, bookkeeper, at this point in time as the land use bylaw states.
Councillor Hopkins?
Thank you. You answered one of my questions, but I, sitting at the computer Sunday night and last night, I did notice that the June 2nd revised edition was missing section 5, which is the dispute and mediation. So I kind of started doing some research and realized that there shouldn't be an HOA aspect inside the ASB, so I understand why that was removed, which is good, because that was gonna be one of my questions today. I guess the other concern I have is, bylaw 1929, we've got some discrepancy in our acres sizes. Section 1 states it's 19.44, and then on Appendix A, DC 10, Section 3, it says 21.33.
I think, yeah, it's not surveyed yet because
Okay.
there's no subdivision. So that's just our internal drawing, so they're going to be approximate. If they are successful in the direct control districts and there's a subdivision, that entire subdivision would be whatever.
Okay,
So that's why.
sure, okay, that answers those questions. And then, I guess my other question is in regards to DC 9. And this may be for the applicant. I guess my main concern is DC 9, should it be successful in designation, will now become a saleable parcel. And with that saleable parcel, now becomes another residence or two residents, potential residents on that 48.66 acres. That's gonna take away from the original aspect of what this whole project was designed for. I'm not 100% sure if that's what the original intent of this whole plan was. I don't think it was, but it's one more potential, I guess that wouldn't, that district wouldn't guarantee the preservation of the whole project. So that's my concern.
Councillor Olson?
Yeah, it's one of my concerns as well. Like I don't have near the the problem with District Control 10, but District Control 9, I know we would have say in what happens, but it seems like there's a lot of uses there that could affect the other community, the other HOA. Yeah, I just feel like we might be causing more issues, but maybe administration could clarify those. District 9, District 10,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's a council decision. You guys have the authority to make whatever uses you see fitting. Currently, that is a separate title. It could be sold as a recreation district parcel, but and it would be for what, the 68 acres, whatever, that whole thing, because it's not subdivided at this point in time. So that can happen either way. Yes, it's likely more marketable with the opportunity to develop it as a residential parcel, but council certainly has the authority to determine if there's uses you want to remove from that district.
Councillor Olson.
So another question to administration. So could this technically be subdivided into 10 4.8 parcels and residences could be sold? So then, and they form their own HOA, so it's almost like Hatfields and McCoys against the other HOA? These are some of my concerns.
That could not happen without it going through council to redesignate. Because the uses in the direct control district would not allow that. So they would have to redesignate to something else if they wanted to do another multi-lot up there.
Any other concerns? Questions? Councillor Hopkins.
Another question. And maybe this won't play into it now that section 5 has been removed. It states in there, homeowners association that owns and manages common lands makes existing owner membership optional, makes future owner membership mandatory. So there's two different kind of levels of membership, and says a member in good standing. And it, again, this might play into the HOA, but it doesn't state what defines as a member of good standing. So going forward with the HOA, that member in good standing would need to be defined as whether they just own property, or if they've paid their dues, or if they've, whatever that definition might be, that needs to be defined. And then who determines, if it isn't defined, who determines what a member in good standing means?
Yeah, not something the applicants will have to address.
Right,
that.
yeah, thank you.
You twig something else and it's gone.
Okay, we can come back into that.
Yeah.
Let's,
I don't know.
any other questions? Councillor Cunningham?
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge file, so I think I have it clear in my head, but I just want to confirm. We've talked a lot about legal. Has the, obviously the two parties, have they done mediation in the legal process? And has that, to this point, been totally exhausted where there's just no ability for them to come to any resolution between the two parties? Does that make sense?
I'm just going to speak from a municipal perspective. I don't know what's gone on between those parties. We have had several meetings with the residents, and so we have tried to work out on multiple occasions to help make this more successful. And it's wound up in the courts at that point in time. But I can't comment on what other methods or avenues have happened outside of our participation.
Any other questions? If there's no further questions, I'll ask the applicant to come forward to make their presentation again, once again. Morning.
Thank you for having us here today. I think we had kind of presented our case last time with where things were at, and still take that stance. I don't know if we need to reiterate it. I know council fully understands the project here. We'll maybe try and just address the concerns that were brought up here today. From my standpoint, that is a member in good standing. I think the intent of that was paid dues, and we can define that in the HOA so it is a little more clear, as it is an opt-in or an opt-out. So if you don't opt in and pay your dues, you don't have any rights to, obviously, the common areas. If you do opt in, you want to be part of the HOA and self-governing entity, then that would be a member in good standing, and that is something that's easily remedied within the HOA, that we can put the definitions in there. Your concern about District 9, a very legitimate concern, and I understand it. However, I respectfully suggest that preservation does require stewardship. And the 46-acre parcel remains substantially larger than any of the surrounding residential lots, and will continue to support equestrian activities, horses, open space, and the rural land uses as directed by DC 9. The challenge is that the land of this size requires investment, maintenance, insurance, taxes, fencing, weed control, trail maintenance, ongoing stewardship, and those responsibilities are difficult to sustain without a viable economic model, or as proposed, what we have here. The proposed direct control district does create that opportunity to remain productive and cared for while still preserving its rural and equestrian character. So from our standpoint, we would suggest that a well-maintained 46-acre equestrian parcel with responsible ownership is more likely to preserve the long-term vision of Prairie View or Saddle Up than a parcel that lacks a sustainable path forward. As it sits right now, it's not being used, and it is, land not being used is obviously not very sustainable either. So we feel from our standpoint that the DC9 does give that opportunity to utilize that land within alignment of what else is going on with the proposed amendment to the ASP.
I think I'm on. There we are. My name is Rael. Just to kind of recap on a few things that Craig had pointed out, from my perspective, the 68 acres being in the zoning that it currently is, and as a pasture use type of thing only, I guess is what started all of this. I did mention in the last council meeting that the 68 acres I did list for sale, and within listing it for sale, there was, I'm going to say, hundreds of calls to you guys and to me, because every time I got a call on it asking about what was permitted, what was not permitted, I directed them right to you guys, because there was a lot of rules and regulations on it. When the initial Saddle Up area structure plan was implemented, it had a riding arena with turnout pens and a turnout pasture. So when it was the 30 acres along with the 68, it made sense to have pasture for horses for those who boarded at the arena, those who utilized the arena space and the pasture. When the 68 acres was separated out, it now doesn't have a water, there's no infrastructure with a well and a pump house so that there's water year-round for animals. We've seen drought for the last few years. Dugouts are not going to be, haven't been reliable for a water source. So within that, to turn that into just a pasture parcel didn't make sense. You need somebody that wants to do something on it, and that was part of why it was a really tough sell. You couldn't have a residence on it. Who's going to buy a pasture and drill a well and create infrastructure when they can't even have a residence there? So within that, it made it a tough sell. And that's why we started. That's why Craig and I came in as volunteers. We aren't being paid to come in and help on this. I saw a problem within Saddle Up and said, and I conned my husband into helping me try and help deal with this. And so within that, we want to try and solve this problem. A lot of the issues that are coming up are from when this was initially created, but even the turnout pasture, when horses used to be worth $3,000 to $5,000, yeah, maybe you'd turn them out in a common pasture. Your average, like, kid's performance horse now is over $30,000 in value. You're not turning it out with 5 other people's in a common pasture anymore. They're just worth too much. So within that, that would be my intent as to why I'd like to see a residence be able to be put on the 48 or 49 acre parcel on the north and west side, so that it's actually practical for pasture. Within the HOA, just to recap on that, it was an opt-in, and that was so that our current landowners, they don't have to, right? They have been promised things that new owners coming in have not been. So we want to be respectful to that they didn't choose to have an HOA fee. So as long as they live there, if they don't want to opt into it, it's okay. But anybody coming in looking at these parcels as for sale, you know, could opt into it so that they have the choice, or that it's mandated that they do opt into it so that they are implemented and they create part of the HOA board that makes decisions for the common lands moving forward. So we tried to be respectful on both sides. We have met with the other landowners. We started 2.5 years ago with meeting at one of the residences at Saddle Up. We've gone for dinner, we've met, we've tried to do what we can to find common ground and do our best to do so. And so within that, I guess we're hoping for a solution and at the end of the day to find something practical for all parties to be happy. Any questions for us?
Councillor Olson.
Do you feel that you've found enough common ground with the residents?
Sorry. Say that one more time.
In saying that you've worked towards finding common ground, do you feel that you've found enough common ground with the residents with this proposal?
You go ahead.
There's been a lot of effort to find common ground. I think that there still is some more room to find common ground. Understanding that these owners were originally promised things that are so far outdated now that are never going to happen. And that's a very unfortunate circumstance that I don't think anybody sitting in this room or anywhere can go back and remedy. It needs to be kind of brought forward, and I think that's kind of the point of finding that common ground is, can we find it? That might be subjective to each person's opinion. I think there's good rapport within, but I do believe, one of their major concerns is they aren't being delivered what was originally promised. That being said, we could go another 20 years and they still possibly not. There's no way that ASP is going to ever be adopted as it is because it's so outdated. And to get everything on board, it needs to be updated. There needs to be a framework that comes together that does try to bring what that original ASP is. We're not trying to completely throw it out the window, but still honor the current landowners and what they have, as well as the arena owner, as well as the District 9 and the 10 proposed lots. So to try to bring it together so that it does amalgamate as much as possible as that old ASP. Because essentially that old ASP was never ratified properly or followed through with. So, I mean, for everybody's interest, and a framework is still not there.
One other point that I would bring to the table with that is that initially we created a meeting to try and find remedy within the arena access. So I as a realtor came in and dealt with it almost like an offer. So we gave Jim an offer as to some ideas. I was a mediator between Jim, the arena owner, and the residents to see if we couldn't negotiate back and forth, again as a volunteer, to see if we couldn't negotiate terms so that it had better rapport for the residents that were there to use the arena. So we went back and forth. I have my file, but I'd have to look how many times we counter offered back and forth between Jim and the residents, and it didn't come to the table with a solution. So then when we started meeting with Barb and Deanna at the county here, we started working through the other components of what needed remedy to see if we couldn't solve some bigger problems and then come back to the arena access. So that's where we got digging into the ASP, and every time there's been suggestion, we've altered our route and created a new path. And the initial hearing was that the council, and I know it was a previous council, but they came back to us and said, we need to fix the area structure plan and everything that falls underneath that umbrella. So that's what we're doing. We've done exactly what we have been asked to do by your guys' council, and we're trying to work from the top, fix the problems within the ASP, and then go through the different branches of umbrella, such as manure management, trails, arena access. And I feel like by going in and trying to find solutions with the ASP and within the HOA, we've dealt with the manure management and also the trail access. And then a last component could be hopefully dealing with the arena access. And Jim Reisler was here at the last council meeting. And I think from what my conversation with him is that if we could fix some of the big problems, maybe that's something that we could work on next. So I guess that's, we've followed the instruction of council, and I know it wasn't your guys' instruction, but that is what we were instructed to do. So that's what we're working on.
And the court order is, for the arena use, is interim. So there is the ability to amend that contract if the arena owner and the current landowners or future landowners can come to an agreement. I mean, that's essentially a lot of what the HOA can capture within it is, you know, that is obviously in place, an interim order, the court order, but that can be amended. They can make a new agreement and go and have that court order, you know, it can be done with once they come to some sort of agreement. But essentially, I don't believe that burden needs to be put on the county or really anybody else. It maybe should be within them homeowners to find that agreement of how that structure looks the best for them.
One other component within it was the name change. And again, I'll reiterate what we said at the last meeting was Saddle Up. I can tell you anytime I talk about Saddle Up, people know about it, right? I'm not going to say it's infamous, but it has some infamous components because of how long it has drug on from 2007 until 2026, right? And when you pull the land titles and you pull up a registration on a land title and it's on all of them, that has an area structure plan that's not even signed and has really outdated information on it, it's impacting on the lots that are there. My job as a realtor is to sell properties, but it really is unfortunate when I have to put sold as is because no one wants to stand behind the warranty and representation of it. Because you can't represent something in a sale that isn't complete and doesn't have parameters and boundaries and everything else. So I am who asked Jeanette to pull the 68-acre parcel off and try and help solve some of the problems because nobody wants to buy into something that has problems. There is a lot for sale in there currently with a home on it. And I mean, there isn't any disclosure or anything on it, but someone's going to ask questions when they come in as a buyer as to, you know, what is this? What is this area structure plan? And how do you have a building and an occupancy permit when the ASP is not even complete or accurate? So my job also as a realtor, I'm a broker, is to help fix problems and not sell them. So within that, that's why we're here. We're here to try and solve the problems of Saddle Up. And we created a new name, going back to what I started with. We created a new name to try and give it a fresh look. But if that isn't favorable, as it says in there, you can counter, accept, or decline that component of what we're applying for.
Any other questions? Councillor Cunningham.
Not a question, well, one question. I hear your frustration. You say you're here to fix problems. I think we're here for the same reason. I do understand your concern about issues that when this project initially came forward, we share the same frustrations. We deal with decisions that were made before we were sat around this table, right? So I do understand that. I know I've heard you folks mention like there has been some meetings and some lunches and that type of thing. I asked the planning department this. Do you feel that legally mediation has been exhausted between the two opposing parties?
From a volunteer perspective, we've exhausted everything we can do to try and find resolution with the current residents.
So could you just clarify, when you mean volunteer, but has there been legal entities involved in the mediation process?
Prior to what we have been doing for 2.5 years, yes, there was. Within that, we were not involved at that time, so we came at it with a fresh volunteer perspective, and that's why we're here. And that's, from our perspective, what we were willing to do. Come in and see if we could find solutions without needing legal, because prior to us stepping in, the legal mediation and court hearings and everything else, you know, probably had a bit of a hostile component to it too, because it was in court. So it was so we tried to do a fresh approach from a volunteer perspective.
Yeah, and I understand that. We have an obligation to our municipality to make sure legally we're taken care of as well, so.
For sure.
Maybe more from the philosophy of go to your brother to solve your problems as opposed to the courts, because not really looking to create a win or lose situation here, which a lot of times that's what happens with legal counsel in courts is there's sides and there's a winner and there's a loser. And in situations like this, that's maybe not for the best. I mean, if it comes to that, then I suppose that's what needs to happen. But from a standpoint of having the community of what it is, and what its vision is to be, court orders and stuff are not necessarily a community thing when you have a court order against your neighbor. So the vision wasn't to exhaust all legal remedies right off the bat. It was to try and create common ground and make a contract amongst the people that everybody could find some, so that it could essentially be what it was supposed to be. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm understanding that. Like, I appreciate the fact that you've gone the volunteer route, but to me, it's looking like that hasn't come to any resolution. So I guess I'm just looking if there needs to be something beyond that. But yeah, thank you for that.
If there's no further questions, we'll take a 10-minute or 5-minute recess right now. We'll come back for the speaker registration. We'll have the speakers. Down at 5 minutes. Okay, well, Jeanette, are you speaking? Okay. Debbie? Okay. You got 5 apiece, 10 minutes.
Go ahead.
I'm Debbie Shorten, Lot 1 in Saddle-Up Estates, and I've lived there since 2012, one of the first people in the subdivision. And so for me, there's been lots of meetings and lots of talk back and forth. And they were talking about having us, the residents that were living there, pay for the maintenance of the trails, and that's where the issues were coming in for us. Because I'm retired, I can't afford that. So I expected that it was going to be maintained as Paul had done, where the trails were there, they were maintained, you knew where they were. And when the ownership changed, that all went away. And for me, that was wrong. And so I wasn't going to sign any agreements that said, well, we were responsible to pay and maintain the trails, because we couldn't do it. So I think that if these guys wanted to talk about making it work, then they should take their HOA and the trail should be expanded back to the original diagram where it went, wherever it went. It's gone. That was around the outside perimeter of the 49 acres. So put that back in, and I think that would work. Everybody be willing to sign an HOA. Everybody be willing to go along with the plan if the trail was maintained as it was supposed to be. As far as the arena goes, that's something we have to work out with Jim, and I don't know if that'll ever happen, but will be for the residents and Jim to work out going forward. And that's where it sits with me. I have my property listed for sale, and it's not because I don't love it there, because I do. It's because I need more property, because I want to have more horses. I can only have 2. So that's the only reason I want to leave. Well, and the fact that we can't seem to come to an understanding. I think the person that owns the land right now, if she put a little bit of money into putting the trails back to what they were, that would be huge in selling lots. That would be huge in the going forward of the whole subdivision. And that's my feelings.
Okay, I'll carry on from Deb. I'm Joanne Foote, owner of Lot 3. I've been there since 2014. Every time that we go in to meet with the current owner and whoever she brings with her, more is taken away. So we're always offered less. We're never even offered what we just had. We're offered less. So how can we bargain in good faith when we're always having something taken away from us? We just sit there with our jaws dropped open. The trails continue to deteriorate because there's no one who, the owner, the property developer, because make no mistake, Judge Marion in the appeal court stood up and yelled and said, your name is on this brochure. And that brochure was from 2013. I'd handed it to him. I no longer have it. It's in the court documents. So this isn't a new property owner. This is someone who was almost in the original development. I made note, I didn't know I was going to have to speak so much, so I'm on my grocery list here. The meetings, there really weren't many meetings. It's a bit exaggerated. Maybe there were lots of meetings, but not many with the property owners. One thing I really objected to was saying new owners would have to take out a membership in this equestrian thing. For sure, people might buy a lot in this subdivision who don't want to have horses. I think it's a huge detriment to selling properties to say you have to have a membership in an equestrian subdivision. Saying who's a member in good standing. In any organization you've ever belonged to, isn't it fun to have to decide who's not in good standing? I mean, other than paying a fee or something that was already brought up. No lots have been for sale in this subdivision. For quite a few years, people would come along, how do we find out how to buy a lot here? Nothing has been for sale, and all this talk about not being able to sell lots, it was because of the owner not having them up for sale for personal reasons. The trail went around the whole quarter. It included that back piece, but it also went around Jim Reisler's property. And it, according to Paul, it's not shown on this map. It went across the little creek where the only access is, where there's a culvert, and it went right through. They took that easement off in a court order in Red Deer, and I went with Paul DeVos because he invited me, but it wasn't, Saddle Up residents weren't told about it. The county were there, the county lawyer or rep or whomever, I don't know who it was. I was just there because Paul didn't want to go alone. So I happened into this Red Deer court thing where they took off the easements on the arena back acreages on some trumped up thing about, with Tyler Nightingale, about it being on a utility easement. And it was all about getting Paul's, this numbered thing off the remaining lots in there. Totally other issue to this, but directly affecting the lot owners in Saddle Up Estates, and the county supported it at that time. I don't have notes on it or anything. I was only there because Paul asked me as a friend, but it certainly impacted us and we were not informed. I'm just trying to find things that might, currently, Deb and I are the only two lot owners who ride in this subdivision, and I can only just recently ride because I went to Lithuania and got my hip replaced, as I said. So we rode the trails together. They're so limited. If they take off the easement around that back piece of land, then there's nothing there. Deb and I have been both fortunate. We're longtime residents of Kneehill County now. You know, we're ensconced in this community. Both of us on our own have ridden, and very kind people who really don't want residents riding on their property have personally allowed Deb and I to ride on different quarters in the area. This is out of kindness. It's not that they want people from Saddle Up Estates riding on their land. They're being very kind to two ladies who don't really, who are getting more and more limited access to places to ride. The arena now is so small that my Tennessee walkers fall over when they try to do the corners. That's a separate issue, maybe that you can address on a different day. I realize it's not part of this particular hearing. And the county allowed that arena to be shortened. The county demanded the arena be built, demanded that there be washroom facility, a viewing area, a coffee room, and then they allowed it all to be taken away. That happened. That went through the planning commission and it happened. And then it was not zoned for a residence and there's 2 apartments there. How did that happen? You know, the permit for it was not allowed, so I'm just bringing that up again. The map shown there is not what we were shown when we bought the property, so am I missing anything? I got all these strange notes.
You've kind of covered it all. The only thing that I can think of is that if, with this new plan, the older residents, if you don't sign into the HOA, you can't use the trails? Is that correct?
That was my understanding.
That was my feeling when we had the last meeting. is that we wouldn't be allowed if we weren't signing into the HOA and paying our $200.
And you know, $200 for what? A little teeny trail around the back of our property with holes and tall grass and badgers. And
Trees
and they-
falling over.
And that no one is bothered to do anything about. It's criminal, really. Go walk it. And you just, it's a joke. What Saddle Up Estates has become is a joke, and we're told, be a member in this wonderful community that's deteriorated into a joke. So when we're asked to meet and we aren't meeting in good faith, we just sit there, good faith for what? For what? I guess there's more points here, but I guess we've said,
We're done.
Thank you.
we're done.
Thank you.
Sorry to ramble.
Steve?
My name's Steve, Lot 4. I was just wondering, how can the lots be sold unless they are not, or pardon me, how could the lots be sold if they're not developed? In other words, the lots are supposed to be fenced, well, septic, electrical, and everything else. So how could the lots not be sold or be sold without that being done, according to the structure plan? And that, I'm sorry, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the questions and your comments. One final time, anybody else want to speak on this? Does the applicant wish to provide a rebuttal or on any of the comments?
Yeah, we thank you for those comments as well, and we do respect everyone in this room and the comments made. As far as maybe just looking at the land use and the trails, that I think the largest concern with putting trails back to the perimeter of that DC9 is it's going to create an easement around the perimeter. Does that become a sellable property now? And I don't know that. That'll be a question to maybe move forward, and maybe one more for a realtor, but to put an easement all the way around to have trails around somebody else's outer perimeter and then try and sell the interior of that and development does create a lot of conflict, I think, for development and a future landowner. So it does inhibit that property potentially. And then the trails, who is responsible for maintaining them? That is what the HOA is there for. That is what the membership is, that's why the HOA is created, because there is nobody that's responsible for maintaining them. To put it back onto the landowner, it's no different than Jim Reisler having his concerns of saying, why am I taking all the liability and paying all the money for somebody else's, you know, enjoyment and use of the facility? It has to be a shared common thing. So I think there has to be that common understanding as well, that if, you know, who's supposed to be responsible to maintain them trails, and essentially it should be the landowners, which is the largest portion of that HOA, is it gives them that opportunity to put some money into the HOA, and then they're self-governing. They can decide they can maintain trails, do some mulching, maybe get a, whatever that looks like, possibly build an outdoor arena. So I think the HOA does cover the management of those trails. There is nobody responsible for those trails, and until we get a framework moving forward, nobody's responsible for moving those trails or maintaining them.
It's a legal instrument that creates rules and parameters to have something that navigates that The other side of things with the DC 10, which is the common lands, you'll notice on the initial trails, it's a 15-foot easement that followed the quarter line all the way around on the west, the north, and the east side of the quarter, 15 feet. You picture two 1,200-pound horses with people on them and a barbed wire fence on each side, for example. You're not riding side by side, you're riding one ahead of the other. So you will notice what we did in the trails that follow the northerly side, northerly and westerly and easterly, I guess, side of the lots, it's expanded to 30 feet. So it's way more practical, and it's against another fence that somebody doesn't have to cross an easement. The common lands, Jeanette is donating it in good faith for all the promises from the past. She's donating an almost 20-acre parcel. It used to be 15 feet that surrounded the perimeter. She's allocating the lands to the Saddle Up or Prairie View Equestrian Development and saying, in good faith, I would like to offer this land so that the parcels become saleable, so that the parcels, you know, have a component that adds an asset to them. And the HOA is to try and help find boundaries and kind of rules so that the people can live there with enjoyment.
Any questions for the applicant? Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, and you've kind of alluded to this, but just, it's a large, complicated file, so I just want to have clarity. Debbie or Joanne mentioned that if, as original owners, if they don't sign the HOA, they won't have access to the trails. Is that correct?
It
Technically,
is
I
an
guess
opt-in and an
not.
opt-out, but I mean, because it is going to be the current HOA members that are responsible for maintaining the trails. So again, asking other people to go and do all the work and put the money in and do the governance and create a board, and then to go and, I suppose, piggyback off of that work of them doing that, essentially, there has to be some level of equal participation in it. I do understand there was a lot of promises made, but Paul's not here anymore. Paul doesn't own the land. There's zero framework going on right now, and it just trying to make a path forward.
That adds it, gives boundaries, I guess, and try to help people find common ground.
Councillor Cunningham.
So just if you could remind me, I think this was brought up last meeting, and I understand the HOA process, but on, let's just say Debbie and Joanne's titles to their property, is there a caveat on those properties that gives them access to those trails?
I haven't pulled their titles specifically, but I'm going to guess that there's the area structure plan just as a blanket registration on their land title. So whatever you guys have in from the 2007 ASP is what is bound to everybody's titles. But you'd have to pull it to confirm
Councillor
that.
Cunningham.
And Joanne, Debbie, you're not aware of that currently on your titles? Okay, thank you.
I don't believe that they were put on title, it was talked about, Barb would know. I haven't seen my title.
Okay.
I was told there were changes to it, but I don't know.
Okay. This question might be more for administration. I heard one of the ladies reference a meeting in Red Deer. Could you just clarify when that meeting was and what that meeting was for?
So I believe the meeting that she's referring to, there was some court issues with that landowner separate from this that she was invited to. And I do know our lawyer was, they had talked to us about pulling the easements, and our lawyer was, no, you need to keep those easements registered on the title. However, the courts did pull them. So there were, and so there's two things happening. They're legal, easements are illegal, and can we go back to our screen here? Thanks. Okay. So what you see on the left is what was proposed in the original area structure plan. What you see highlighted in yellow was actually registered at land titles. So if you were on those lots, an easement or right-of-way was registered, but it was not, there was never the mechanism to allow people to just, the mechanism to use them. So there was to be a membership attached to that. That's the piece that never happened. What you see in yellow is what the courts removed. So there was a register, it's like a utility easement. It's like anything else that you might see on your land. So that was the grantor giving the grantee a right-of-way. But that's what the courts have removed. And so again, I know our lawyer responded back to them and said they need to remain, but that did not happen. So now we have no mechanism, and because those easements were removed, we're trying to create or come up with some option to create that mechanism.
Councillor Cunningham.
So you mentioned that membership never happened. So is that the responsibility of the developer to have that membership, or whose was that?
Initially, yes, it was. So when the area structure plan was adopted, he was wanting to provide a membership and to give ownership, not only the arena parcel and that big back parcel was all one title. So he was wanting to create that those titles would all be caveated to the lots, so everybody would have an interest in not only the arena, but the trails. He was unsuccessful, and I'm basing that on the Planning Commission report from 2014, in which they got permission to subdivide the arena parcel out. He was unsuccessful with people not wanting to have that ownership, so it did leave it a bit in limbo. And again, I think people were using it, but there was no registered membership to allow them to do that.
Councillor Anderson.
I have to ask then, if legal didn't recommend the removal of caveats, who did?
It was their lawyer. It was done by another lawyer.
Questions? Any other concerns? Okay. Is council satisfied with the information that we've received here today? Councillor Hoppins?
I'd like to make a motion that council goes in camera at 11:26.
Questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. We'll go into camera, 11:26. we're going to come out of closed session. Councillor Hopkins.
I make a motion to come out of closed session at 11:45.
All in favor? Carried. Thanks for being patient with us. There's a lot to digest here, so we needed some more discussion. Right now, is council satisfied with all the information they have in front of them today and what that was provided? Okay. I'm going to remind everybody that once the public hearing is adjourned, no further information on the matter will be received by the council. I now declare the public hearing closed at 11:46. I'll need a motion to go back into council. Councillor Olson.
I'll make the motion to resume regular council.
Questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. Thanks everyone for coming. Appreciate it. The Ballad Group presenting Kneehill County Parks and Recreational Needs. Welcome. We'll do some introductions. To my far right,
Laura Lee Michelle Cunningham, Division 5.
Lonnie McCook, Division 7.
Richard Hoppins, Division 6.
Lowell Olson, Division 4.
Darcy Penner, Division 2.
Welcome. You got the floor.
Thank you so much, Reeve, and thank you, Council, for having us again. We're very excited to come back and discuss this Regional Parks and Recreation Needs Assessment. So we're going to be discussing in a little bit of detail the findings of our report, the research that's gone into it, the recommendations that we arrived at, and the implementation plan as well. So we'll get right into it here. So just a quick little agenda. We'll talk about the project scope and the context of what went into the work that has been done. We'll start off with the comparative regional benchmark, which discusses the comparative values and assets between Kneehill County and other jurisdictions that we found similar. We'll go over our engagement results that we had conducted. We'll talk about the strategic priorities that were identified, the recommendations that came out of those priorities, and then lastly, the implementation plan for improving these assets and these strategies for Kneehill County. So very quickly, just for some information, I know that we've already presented on this before, but as a quick refresher, we are Ballad Group. So we're a consulting firm based in Alberta. We have 60+ staff in 6 different offices across the province. Since 2012, we have developed and delivered numerous projects in community development, tourism, recreation, housing, economic development, and strategic planning. Our approach is to listen first and then react. We want to make sure we understand the needs of the community and the people that we are serving to ensure that we come up with solutions which are going to be impactful and sustainable in the long term. And we have worked with municipalities, Indigenous governments, nonprofits, and community organizations all across the province, as well as in areas in Saskatchewan and out east as well. So this is our project team here. I myself am Assad. I am the research lead for this project. Aaron is our engagement lead who led a lot of the engagement that we did on this work. Holly, who is currently on maternity leave, is our project manager for this. Bree, who has moved on to pursue educational pursuits that she has, was our research analyst that initially was working on this project, and with Bree no longer available, Andrew here is the research analyst who has worked on a lot of the progress that you'll be hearing about today. So very quickly, I'll talk about the study purpose before I pass it on to Andrew. So the purpose of the needs assessment was to support evidence-based parks and recreation planning. We know that there needs to be work done in this space, but we want to make sure that before we do the work, we are looking at the evidence, we are looking at the findings to make the best possible decision. We wanted to assess how the current system is functioning as part of that. We then wanted to identify system-level pressures and opportunities, provide recommendations as well as a plan to implement them based on the evidences that we investigated, and then ultimately inform future decision-making and prioritization. So coming up with a complete plan that's supported by evidence, supported by engagement findings and the rest, to provide a roadmap for how things should go, how things should develop, and how the future should look like to achieve all the goals that we've identified. So with that having been said, I'll pass it on to Andrew to go into the details of the study.
Thank you, Assad. So as Assad had mentioned, we had given an interim report presentation to the council. Oh, no, I'll go back one there. Oh, sorry. Yeah. We had given an interim presentation to the council partway through this report to let them know what our preliminary findings were, and this is just going to go quickly over the project scope to kind of refresh council and let them know what we've done since then. So looking at a regional context for parks and recreation service delivery, of course, Kneehill County, it's very important the collaboration that they have with the local internal municipalities and the counties that surround them in order to deliver recreation services to residents. We go over some of the indoor, outdoor, and nature-based recreation activities that are available in the county, and we discuss the county-owned assets as well as the privately owned facilities that are within the county that are important to recreation service delivery. We also provide an inventory of all the recreation facilities that are located in neighboring municipalities, and as my colleague Assad was saying, that's what we use to inform some of our comparative benchmarking to see how Kneehill performs relative to other counties in the region. We also go over some of the financial context and operating realities for delivering parks and service delivery in the county. And then we talk about some of the community engagement with stakeholders, youth, and other results that we have from surveys, from workshops, and from different engagement methods that we had with residents of the county. And then we provide some strategic priorities that are supported by recommendations and action plan that the county can use to implement some of the strategies to address any of the gaps or needs identified in the assessment. So again, for context, when we're talking about recreation service delivery within the county, it's a large geographically dispersed population. There's a strong reliance on shared facilities, and there's going to be regular travel from people in different communities to access some of the recreation facilities that they desire. Recreation, again, is going to function as a regional system. There's not going to be one central hub or one central area that you would see in a larger city. This is something that's very unique to rural counties, and of course that has to be accounted for when we're looking at the needs assessment. One of the major things that we identified early on was that growth is not expected to be a major factor driving parks and recreation facility expansion in the county. The population is expected to grow modestly over the next 5 years, so the main goal is going to be more making sure that the assets and the condition of those assets are maintained and that the parks and service delivery is done in a fiscally responsible way moving forward. Next one. So regional facilities and benchmarking, this is something we touched on a little bit earlier. Kneehill County provides a really good level of recreation infrastructure that meets or exceeds the regional benchmarks for all the facilities that we looked at. Specifically, things like outdoor pools, baseball diamonds, campgrounds, and curling rinks were seen to have on the upper end of the benchmark compared to other counties that surround Kneehill. Skate parks, indoor aquatic facilities, and indoor equestrian facilities had relatively lower service levels, but were still within the benchmarks. They were not near the bottom compared to the other counties that surround Kneehill. And then moving on to engagement, this was a very crucial part of what informed our needs assessment, what we heard from residents and some of the needs that they identified and that they would like to see moving forward. So this was done with stakeholder engagement. Specifically, we had 30 interviews that were conducted with community groups, volunteers, and operation managers for private recreation facilities in the county to see what kind of trends they were seeing, what some of their concerns were, and some of the issues that have been brought up to them from residents that are participating in their programs. Some of the highlights that we identified from this were facility condition, aging infrastructure contribute to capacity and scheduling pressure in some of these facilities. And there was also identified a high dependence on volunteers for recreation program service delivery. So there were some concerns that were brought up with these volunteer and agricultural associations about succession planning and the long-term sustainability around these volunteers and the services that they provide. We also had an open focus group for a lot of these stakeholders to come in and share some of their concerns and have a bit of an open discussion about things that they'd like to see. And again, facility condition and deferred maintenance was one of the highlights that we identified through that focus group. There was also a strong interest on improved collaboration between the towns and counties and operators. Another major component of our engagement was the community survey. We had a total of 469 responses for the survey. The report has a very comprehensive list of data that we got from all the different responses, and the highlights here that we want to share with council are that libraries, pools, and arenas were identified as some of the most in-demand facilities by residents. The awareness, cost, and scheduling availability and travel distance were identified as the most significant barriers to recreation service delivery. And there was strong support across the board for maintaining and improving the existing facilities over adding new ones. There were no major gaps identified saying that we need a specific facility in a specific community. It was mainly just improving and making sure that the access to the existing facilities was maintained. Youth survey that we conducted with a number of the grade and primary schools around the county as well also showed that there is the most significant barrier to recreation participation by youth was actually their time constraints and their scheduling availability, not necessarily access to facilities and programs. But they would like to emphasize greater availability of drop-in programs as something that youth would like to see going forward. That would allow them more unstructured, informal recreation opportunities that would fit with their schedule. So overall, what are those implications with the needs assessment and some of the key system challenges that we identified? Moving forward, there are some risks to long-term sustainability for recreation service delivery in the county, mainly that aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance on some facilities that I discussed earlier, variable facility condition across the system, that of course goes with the aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance. Volunteer retention, attraction, and community group operational capacity was another one that I had previously touched on that, again, presents some long-term sustainability risks. Resident access to information was one that I haven't discussed yet. That was also another long-term issue, is a lot of the programs and facilities that we discussed with residents, many of them weren't aware, especially of facilities and programs that are operating in other communities that they would be willing to travel to, but they weren't aware were an option for them. So increasing that awareness and access to that information would be something that would be important for residents moving forward. And finally, there's an increasing desire for indoor and winter-friendly recreation options, especially among youth and seniors, that ability to access some recreation facilities and programs year-round that aren't constrained by weather and other issues that could prevent them from accessing them on a regular basis and making that a part of their schedule and their lifestyle. So going forward, this is the strategy implications that we have for our needs assessment. And I gave this slide as a kind of a structure to show how our implementation plan works. We have the strategic priorities that were identified specifically for Parks and Recreation service delivery in the county. And those are based off of policy review, including the strategic plan that was recently adopted by the county, data analysis that we've done for the different facilities and parks and recreation services in the county, and then of course the engagement findings that we had with residents of the county. All of these strategic priorities have associated recommendations that we have developed to support that strategic priority for the county moving forward. And then each one of those recommendations have multiple actions that the administration of the county can take in order to move those recommendations forward and then support the strategic priorities. So briefly discussing some of the strategic priorities that we had identified in the report for Parks and Recreation service delivery specifically was prioritizing life cycle reinvestment over expansion. Touched on that a few times, but just wanted to make it clear that there's no need for new facilities or those kind of major investments that we're looking at. It is from the data and from the engagement findings and from the existing policies of the county, looking at prioritizing that life cycle and reinvestment and making sure that the facilities maintain their current capacity. Strengthening regional cooperation and partnerships through intermunicipal cooperation was also another thing that was identified. Enhanced collaboration with community groups, service providers, ensuring that that service delivery continues to be strong and to find opportunities to make that more efficient. The third priority was addressing capacity and scheduling pressures, improved access to high-demand facilities and programs by addressing some of the capacity constraints and scheduling pressures. That ties in a little bit to the life cycle renewal and some of the deferred maintenance that can reduce the overall capacity, but finding multiple methods, and we do have some actions moving forward that can help address those and make sure that all of the facilities are being used as efficiently and maximizing their capacity as much as possible. Fourth, we have improved access to indoor recreation opportunities, as I touched on before. That is really important for the year-round support of recreation service delivery, especially with youth and seniors. And then priority 5, expanding everyday and low-barrier recreation opportunities that are a little bit more flexible with people's schedules and can hopefully incentivize people to have more active lifestyles and more convenient access to these programs. So then based on those strategic priorities, we've developed a few recommendations here, and we do have in later slides some bit more graphics to show how those connect, but as I mentioned before, each of these recommendations is connected to a number of the strategic priorities that we had previously identified. And then below we have just a couple of the actions that we figured would be the most relevant to highlight during this presentation. So when we're talking about the first recommendation, developing a decision-making model to evaluate and prioritize potential recreation investments, that would be something that the administration can use when they're looking at potential new investments or identifying potential investments that would address service gaps moving forward in the future. Having an objective framework to evaluate those would be very helpful. It would streamline the process. It'd make it a lot clearer for county residents as to how this decision was made, and it makes everything go a lot faster when we are looking at those kind of investments. Second recommendation was to formalize a facility prioritization framework for maintenance, renewal, and expansion, and that addresses some of the deferred maintenance issues that we talked about earlier. So defining that framework, assessing the facilities based on community impact, operating costs, service risks, other metrics like that would be very important, and then using that framework to identify the most pertinent needs and addressing those first. Recommendation 3 touches on the volunteer capacity, so specifically reducing the administrative burden on volunteers so that they can maximize their time and make sure that the volunteers that are currently running these community groups have the most impact with the time that they've allocated to that. That includes some actions such as developing standardized templates and policy guidelines for the ag societies and volunteer groups, identifying, coordinating, or subsidizing scheduling and administrative software to ensure that, again, there is a standardized template in place for people who are maybe taking over existing volunteer boards or people who may not necessarily have as much time as they previously had, to make sure that all of the organizational, operational pieces of these volunteer boards are completed. And then ensuring resources are easily accessible to new and existing volunteers as they come in to replace people who are aging out or may no longer have the schedule to participate to the same level that they used to have in those volunteer boards, so that, again, those services are continued to be offered at the existing levels. Our fourth recommendation, establishing an ongoing process to monitor and refine the recreation funding model. Assessing the current funding model, identifying any areas that could possibly be improved to ensure continued fiscal responsibility, and evaluating an alternative funding approaches such as hybrid models, fees, tax-based, and community-led and user fee-based, depending on which facility, and of course that's going to be up to the administration to define the details of, but moving forward, I think establishing that ongoing process just to evaluate the funding model would be something that would be very beneficial. And these are our last three recommendations here. Strengthening and collaborating with municipal partners, obviously defining the scope of collaboration and then being able to identify some opportunities for expansion, and implementing coordinated approaches for recreation service delivery will be beneficial moving forward, just making sure that everything is done as efficiently as possible. Expanding informal and unstructured recreation opportunities was also another recommendation that we had to support one of our strategic priorities. Identifying underutilized spaces that can support more flexible programming and increasing access to lower barrier recreation opportunities, particularly for youth, seniors, and underserved groups, to ensure that they have the most opportunity to participate in recreation. And finally, improve data collection and capacity tracking. So that is something that moving forward the administration can look at doing by strengthening coordination with the existing user groups and improving facility and program data collection. That can be regular surveys, interviews with workshops, and mainly maintaining an up-to-date, an up-to-date list of that data, so that when we are doing some evaluations going forward for different kinds of investment, that you have something to draw on that's very concrete and objective and can be used to support decisions moving forward. So this was a graphic that we had that helps to visualize what the flow of the implementation plan is, talking about, very first off, the action plan, some of the items that you'd want to use to support the strategic priorities and the recommendations that we have, just defining those actions for the administration. The implementation timeline, what the expected timeline and overall status of the items in those action plan would be. And then based on that implementation timeline, of course, the funding models and financial considerations for the county that come out from that implementation timeline and the actions that are associated with them. And then, of course, based on that, any intermunicipal cooperation and community support considerations that the county would have to consider before moving forward. And finally, finishing up with a monitoring and evaluation framework with some key performance indicators that would allow the county to see the progress of the Parks and Recreation service delivery and how the different decisions could impact that. So again, talking just about the action plan, very specific actions that are associated with each recommendation, including responsibility, key stakeholders, timelines, and the priority level for each one of those actions associated with the recommendations. And then we gave an example here of the timeline. So this was for one of our recommendations of expanding informal and unstructured recreation opportunities and some of the actions associated with that and what our best estimates were going forward for those to implement those actions. Financial considerations, funding considerations address cost recovery strategies and potential funding models to support implementation. So we discuss different types of cost recovery strategies and how some of the costs can be mitigated by enhanced collaboration with local organizations and other municipalities. Finally, the intermunicipal cooperation, and community support, focusing on strengthening partnerships and improving that coordination across the recreation system. Coordinating communications and promotion was specifically one of the actions that we identified as an area that could potentially be improved. And then that data sharing and collaborative analytics. We did get a lot of data as part of formulating and writing this report that can be used and can be shared with other counties and other municipalities, and just making sure that the county has as much access to that data as possible moving forward would help them support their decision-making process. So then to finish it off here, we have a monitoring and evaluation framework that talks about some KPIs or key performance indicators that the county can look at in the future when they're evaluating the performance of the Parks and Recreation service delivery to see how different changes or different programs are impacting that. Collect data that reflects both system performance and the community outcomes to support the use of monitoring mechanisms. Things like program participation rate, for example, at specific facilities, the operating cost per capita for facilities, and facility condition index that will also help play into some of our other recommendations. And finally, the monitoring mechanisms that are actually going to use these KPIs, a practical and adaptable system for tracking progress that ensures recreation services remain relatively effective, efficient, and aligned with the community needs. And of course, that entails things like utilization tracking, looking at the volunteer and organizational capacity for some of these volunteer organizations that are essential for service delivery in the county, and then facility condition audits to make sure that the facilities are at the condition that the county believes them to be at currently. And that is a summary of our full report there. If there are any questions or any comments that the council members would like to have right now, we'd be happy to address them and answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions, concerns? Councillor Cunningham.
So I'm just curious, thank you for your presentation. I saw that you got 133 youth surveys, which to me is great, and I know we always look at different ways to engage our youth. How did you get those? Did you go to the schools, or how were you able to collect that data?
Yeah,
so give me the secret.
What we were actually able to do there is we got put in touch with a lot of the administration at the different grade schools around the county, and then we sent them I think it was through SurveyMonkey, was it? It is an online survey that we sent to them. They did it in their computer classrooms through their Chromebooks. Children were able to obviously answer. I think we had 20 questions that were pertinent specifically to Parks and Recreation, and then we had an open-ended section as well saying if there's anything that they'd like to see or any concerns that they had. And I believe we sent it out to, was it 5 or 6 schools, and we had 3 or 4 that were able to participate in the end. So that was the main that we collected youth surveyed results.
Yeah, just following up on what I understood. That's exactly what we had done, and we found that the schools were very eager to actually make sure to engage the youth. So it really for us was just making sure that they had the content available, the resources available to just share with the youth, and they were very happy to accommodate either during a class or otherwise. I think we were initially even thinking of a paper survey that they could just distribute in class, and maybe during reading time. We're not reading today. We're actually just doing a survey. But I think ultimately the digital avenue just became easier for coordination. But the schools seemed very eager to engage, and I think in the future that I would imagine still holds.
Did you ask them whether they're county ratepayers or townies?
No, we didn't. We didn't have that particular question.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will break for dinner, 12:11. We're on? Okay, we're back at 12:50. Request for decision on what we just saw? No. Which is this one? 5.2? Okay. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Council. So I am just here to bring the decision on the needs assessment reports. As of right now, after the presentation from Ballad, the options before Council are to adopt the Kneehill Regional Parks and Recreation Needs Assessment Comprehensive Report as presented. If there's any recommended amendments, option 2 would be to adopt it as amended, or option 3 would be to provide some feedback on the report and request an updated version to be brought back at a later date. Of course, our recommendation is to adopt it as presented.
Any discussion? Any questions? Councillor Penner.
I'll make the motion that council adopt the Kneehill Regional Parks and Recreation Needs Assessment Comprehensive Report as presented.
Questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried.
Perfect. Thank you, Council.
Thank you for that, getting that done. That was a long project. Snaps for foul and bow.
All right, 6.1, policy 16.5.
Good afternoon, Council. I brought this policy to a COW meeting a couple weeks ago and was given feedback on what Council wanted to see added. So I've made some amendments. First of all, I've added a new clause stating that approved budgets are not intended to justify unnecessary spending. Basically, the nice way of saying the lose it or use it or lose it thing, that if you have so much money and you don't spend it, so financial stewardship principle has been added. I also added another provision that prohibits any reallocation of funds between line items where the expense does not align with the original purpose or service area. So basically that means that if you underspend in tools and you overspend somewhere else, you can't just take your tool money and use it somewhere else. It has to align with the original purpose of each line item. I also clarified in there that the CAO may only reallocate within the same functional service area, kind of the same thing. It has to align with the original intent. And so basically the policy maintains administrative flexibility while preserving council's fiscal authority. Is there any questions about it?
I'm thinking. I guess where our intent was is that and I think you've covered it, like you just can't grab money wherever you want. Anything that isn't in the budget better be coming back to council.
Yeah,
that includes the CAO.
Yeah, and that's in here.
Okay, that's what my question was. That's fine. And I think that's if I remember right, was that the only two or did we have another one? That was the only two, wasn't it?
Well, that we were, basically the two majors were the use it or lose it. So you got to use all your money, otherwise you're going to lose it in the next go around. So I added that stipulation in there that just because you have it doesn't mean you have to spend it. So I added that stipulation in there. And then I also added that the CA only has the ability to move it in the same functional area. So I'll just use an IT for an example. Okay. So if I'm down on software, I can't just go buy computers because I'm down on software. That's not the same functional area. Okay. So basically, if it's not in the budget, it has to come back to council, basically.
Good. And the other thing too is I think we were discussing also is that I think the budgets better be a little tighter than what they are rather than loose to have this extra money.
Yes.
Okay. If that's in there, I'm pretty sure that's what we asked for.
Yep.
So, any other questions? Councillor
Yeah,
Bennett?
I just want to comment that when I read through it, I thought you hit all the high points that we were looking for. And so with that, I'd like to make the motion that council approve policy 16.5, authorization of unbudgeted expenditures as presented.
Questions or concerns on it, on the motion? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Council.
6.2, tax cancellation.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm bringing forward policy 16-15 tax cancellations for a quick review. So Kneehill County Policy 1615 tax cancellation establishes the framework under which council may consider canceling, reducing, or deferring municipal taxes where it's considered equitable to do so. The authority for these actions is from Section 347 of the Municipal Government Act. So Policy 1615 applies to this legislative authority in a structured manner by identifying specific circumstances where tax cancellations may be considered, including for qualifying entities such as gas cooperatives located in Kneehill County. The policy further established an administrative process requiring that, and I just have to clarify, I put prior, but we usually do it during. We end up with not the right, like, enough time to get it to council prior to it. So it usually comes a little after, but I noticed that I had put prior there. So during the issuance of annual tax notices, administration will bring forward a formal request for decision for council's consideration respecting any proposed tax cancellations. This ensures that all tax cancellations are reviewed and approved through the transparent government process. Overall, the policy provides a consistent, legislatively aligned approach to managing discretionary tax relief while maintaining council's oversight of any impacts on municipal revenues. So it provides a constant and legislatively aligned framework for tax cancellation, ensures fair and equitable consideration of qualifying properties, maintains council's oversight and transparency for all tax relief decisions. All the cancellations are applied in accordance with policy 1615 and have been considered within the county's overall budget. So there was no changes made to this tax cancellation policy. It kind of gets kept the same because every year these cancellations get brought forward. So this policy is just saying we're going to bring these forward for a decision. So I didn't make any changes to this policy that was written in 2016. So some council options are to approve the policies presented, approve the policy with amendments, direct administration to revise the policy, or provide additional information. Our recommended motion is that council adopts the policy tax cancellations as presented for tax cancellation in accordance with Section 347 in the Municipal Government Act. And what we do after that is we bring forward an RFD with any cancellations that the tax department would make in a year. So with this one, it does specify that the gas cooperatives, so those are the ones working in the county, the taxes get written off for those because they don't get put on to ratepayers. So that's the only one that's like kind of outlined in here, but we do have other cancellations like oil and gas. We had expected them to be short-term and not year after year after year. So I didn't include them in it. Like I didn't change it. I just left it as we'll bring forward all changes, all cancellations, and also the gas cooperatives from the county. Does anyone have any questions on this policy?
Councillor Olson.
So we did not have these tax exemptions prior to 2016, is that correct?
I think the policy just was made to just specify that all cancellations will be reviewed by council. And at that time, then they started to, then they put in the gas cooperatives. So I don't have them written off prior to that. If they were, I didn't see a record of it. I just looked back to 2016 when this came in.
Councillor Hopkins.
Just to hopefully answer your question a little further, it's my understanding that when gas co-ops first came in the late 60s, early 70s, because they were non-profit, member-owned, it was an initiative to help gas co-ops lower their fees to those new members. So as far as I know, this has been in existence for a long time. Yeah, it was just rewritten in 2016.
So there was a policy prior?
I believe so, yeah.
I just don't think it was a policy.
There was a policy in 2014, you can go back, you can see on the bottom here, it was approved. There was a policy before that in 2014. If I go back to 2014, there might have been policies before that, I just have to do some research.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Concerns? Councillor Hopkins.
I move that council adopt policy 16.15, tax cancellations as presented for tax cancellations in accordance with section 347 of the Municipal Government Act.
Any questions or concerns on the,
Just a quick comment.
Councillor Cunningham?
Yeah, I just want to say, just from sitting here last term, Kneehill County Administration has done a great job in the tax collection, especially with the oil companies. When you go to RMA, you hear a lot of very sad stories about municipalities that are lacking a lot of money due to this. And I just want to give kudos to our administration for the work that they've done to get as close as we can to full payment. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns on the motion? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Let's go to 7.3.
So I just wanted to speak briefly to council about Councillor Attendance item. As everyone knows, Councillor Woodstock has been going through a difficult family situation. Our main goal here is simply to make sure that he has the time and space he needs to focus on his family without the added pressure of worrying about missing meetings. We want to make sure Councillor Woodstock knows that council is behind him and that he can take the time he needs during this period. Administration brought this forward so that if needed, council can formally excuse his absences and give that reassurance that he doesn't have to be concerned about attendance while dealing with this. He has missed May 26th and June 9th meetings so far, and this is just gives us the opportunity to be proactive and supportive moving forward. At the end of the day, this is about care, understanding, and making sure he can take the time he needs. So administration recommends that council make the following motion, that council authorize the absence of Councillor Woodstock from regular council meetings until such time as he is able to return to his council duties in accordance with section 174 of the Municipal Government Act.
I'm pretty sure that we all had that discussion prior to this, and this is what this is about. And I mean, there's no problem with this whatsoever. They can take all the time they need. And I presume, and I will almost guarantee it, we'll do it for each and every one of you. So I have no problem with the motion, or pardon me. Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, I think we're definitely all in support of this, and we're all thinking about Jerry and Barb and family and grandkids. So I'll make the motion that council authorize the absence of Councillor Woodstock from regular council meetings until such time as he is able to return to his council duties in accordance with section 174 of the Municipal Government Act.
Questions or concerns on the motion? All in favor? Carried. We'll go to 9.1, Kneehill Regional Family and Community Support Services. There'd be a report, I would imagine.
Yes, I think if I remember, the minutes from the last meeting are in the package. Yeah, and all that I have, just, we have a special meeting coming up on June 16th, just for the board to discuss the Kneehill Regional and Family Community Support Services Agreement, which involves Kneehill County and the 5 urban. So, yeah, that's it at this
Do we
time.
need anything, do you need any help on that one?
Nope, we're all good. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Everybody okay with that report? Council, the action follow-up list, everybody had a chance to look at that? I'll run over it real quick. Looks okay. Any other concerns on it?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Closed session. Need a motion?
Yes, I will make the motion that council moves into closed session for intergovernmental relations, ATIA section 26. Do I need to read the rest of?
Okay.
Okay.
At this time, we'll come out of closed. Motion to come out of closed. Councillor Hopkins.
I move to come out of closed session at 3:03.
Any questions or concerns on the motion? All in favor? Carried. We'll let the gallery come back in if need be. All right, there's nothing to come back in. 3:04, motion coming up from closed session. Councillor Penner?
I would move that council direct administration to proceed with initiating negotiations with the town of Three Hills toward a new intermunicipal collaboration framework agreement and not pursue an extension of the existing agreement.
Any questions or concerns on the motion? All in favor? Carried. That being said, we're adjourned.